Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We are continuing to learn Hilchas Chanukah, and with Hashem we will be learning Daf Kuf Lamed Ches Amud Beis. We pick up on Kuf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph with a new Siman Taf Reish Ayin Aleph. Seder Adlakas Ner Chanukah U'Mekayim Hadachasai. The proper method of lighting Ner Chanukah and the proper placement of the Neris U'Baiches Seifim, and here we have 8 Seifim. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph, Tzarech lizaher ma'oid bahadlakas neros Chanukah. We have to take great care with the lighting of the Chanukah neros. Va'afilu ani ha'misparnes ben hatzdaka, and even an ani, even a pauper who counts on tzedakah for his upkeep. Shayel. Now the word shayel literally means borrow, but we'll see what it really means in the Mishnah Berurah. Shayel ay moicher kesusai, or he has to sell his clothing, the very shirt off his back, v'loikach shemen lahadlik, and he has to use that income to purchase shemen with which to light Chanukah neris. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Aleph, Tzarech lizahar, you have to take great care with hadlakas neris Chanukah. V'amrinim b'Gemara, the Gemara says in the second parak of Masechta Shabbos, haragil bener, which I'm going to translate as somebody who is very careful with neros. Haragil bener, havin loy banim talmidei chachamim, will have children who are talmidei chachamim. Shenemar, this is based on the pasuk in Mishlei, which says, ki ner mitzvah v'Torah or. Ner is a mitzvah and Torah is or. Torah is light. The light of the neris bring the light of Torah. Pirish Rashi al zeh, and Rashi is mefarish on this pasuk. Ner mitzvah. What ner mitzvah are we referring to in this pasuk? Ner mitzvah de Shabbos v'Chanukah. We're referring to Shabbos licht and Chanukah licht. There's a very nice Dirshu footnote over here. It's Dirshu footnote number 1 in this Siman. I have to locate it. It's in the back. It's in the Miluim on page 101. All the way in the bottom, the last paragraph of page 101. Dirshu footnote number 1. Ubebir kavanas haGemara haragil bener. As far as the proper explanation of the Gemara in Shabbos that speaks about somebody who is ragil bener, mevur betur ubeshulchan aruch le'el siman reish samach gimel sif aleph. We saw earlier in Hilchas Shabbos uve Mishnah Berurah sham le'inyan ner Shabbos, that this speaks about ner Shabbos. Sha'akavanihi, that the intent of this Marmar Chazal is lemi shezahir lahadlik l'chvarit Shabbos ner yafeh. Well, this is referring to haragil bener, having lod banim tamid chachamim, is referring to somebody who goes the extra step to light a ner yafeh, to light it a beautiful ner. Ubir Bach, and the Bach explains over there on the Torah, it's Divrei HaTorah, Shes Iker Chayvas Hadlaka, as far as the Chiv of Adlakas Ner Shabbos, Mekayim Gamim Eino Yafeh. You're Mekayim the Chiv, even if it's not a beautiful Ner. Avalim Medaktek Lases Yafeh. But if you go the extra step and you put in the effort to make it a Ner Yafeh, then Zaychel Abanim Tamidei Chachamim. V'chein Kasav Apelayoyetz, Krach Beis, Erech Ner Shabbos, V'ner Chanukah, Sha'akavana Sheyeh HaKeli Shemadlik B'ay Noah V'Noki. The keli, the lamp, the candlestick that you use should be beautiful and clean. V'sheyadlik b'shemen zayizach, and you should light with a beautiful clear oil. V'chein mashma b'sidr yavitz, and it's mashma like this as well from the words of Rabbi Yaakov Emden. So haragil bener, somebody who goes to be mahader, and he uses a beautiful menorah, at least in the context of Neres Chanukah. He uses a beautiful menorah, and he selects beautiful clear oil, and he does everything he can. He polishes the menorah and keeps it clean, and keeps the setting clean, and he really puts in the effort to do it in a mehuder dika oifen, havin lon banim talmidei chachamim. Mishnah Berurah is cut beis. Va'afilu ani, even a pauper who's misparnes ben hatzdaka, has to borrow, or he has to go around collecting money or sell his clothing in order to have oil to light the Neres Chanukah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, mishum presume nisa. This is because the mitzvah of Neres Chanukah is a mitzvah of Persumei Nisa, and a mitzvah of Persumei Nisa we find in other places, like the Dalet Kaisais on the Seder night, that even an Ani HaMisparnis Ben Atzdaka has to generate some income for the Dalet Kaisais and for the Neres Chanukah. Ois Katan Gimel, the Mechaber said that the Ani has to be shoyel. Literally, the word shoyel means to borrow. Says the Chavetz Chaim, that's not what it means here. It means al hapsachim. It means he has to go around to doors. He has to go around and knock on doors and not really borrow, pashut beg. He has to go collect money so that he should have money for Neres Chanukah. Or he could sell his clothing, or hire himself out. However, realize that the Ani is only mechuyev to take these drastic steps in order to gain for himself enough oil to light one ner for each night of Chanukah, because that's the basic chiyuv. The basic chiyuv, as we're going to see coming into Sif Beis, the basic chiyuv of Neres Chanukah is ner ish ubeisai, one ner for each household, and that's all the Ani has to be shayel al hapsachim to get. Now we go to Sif Beis. Before I even begin to read Sif Beis, I want to go to the Bir Halacha, Dibra Maschel Balayla Harishayna Madlik Echad. Because this Bir Halacha brings down the Gemara in Shabbos that just shows us the different levels of the Kiyam HaMitzvah of Neres Chanukah, the Iker Din, and then what we call Mahadrin, and then finally what we call Mahadrin Mina Mahadrin. So, Chavetz Chaim writes in the Bir Halacha here, Amrinon b'Gemara, we say in the Gemara in Shabbos Tav Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, the mitzvahs Chanukah ner ish ubeisai. The Iker Chiyuv of Neres Chanukah is one ner for each household. Ritzaynoi loymar. What that means is, Dedai ner echad l'chol b'nei beisai b'chol layla v'layla. Really, just to be Mekayim the Chiyuv, the Iker Chiyuv of Neres Chanukah, it's enough to have one ner in each household for each night of Chanukah. V'hamahadrin, then there's the level that we call Mahadrin, which is Madlikin ner l'chol echad ve'echad. Not one ner per household, but one ner for each family member in the household. So if there are 5 people in the house, you'll have 5 neres, but 5 neres on each night of Chanukah. You don't add another ner for each day just for the chiyuv of Mahadrin. For Mahadrin, it's just each person lights one ner for each night. Then there's the level of a Hamahadrin. Mina Mahadrin, Yom Rishon Madlik Echad, the first night you light one. Mikan ve'elech, from then and going forward, Moisef Vahelech Echad B'chal Laila, you add an additional ner each night. Ad Shebaleila Achrain, until it comes out that on the final night of Chanukah, you Shmoina, you should have 8. Now realize the way the Chavetz Chaim wrote this, he didn't write if everybody in the household does this or only one member of the household does this. So realize, what we saw so far is Me'ikar Adin, it's Ner Ish Ubeisai. One Ner each night of Chanukah, but only one Ner in each household. The head of the household lights one Ner per night. That's the Ikar Adin. The Mahadrin is that each member of the household lights one ner each night. Then there's the Mahadrin Mina Mahadrin. The Mahadrin Mina Mahadrin, the Gemara in Shabbos says, is each night you add another ner. But is it that each night everybody lights another ner? Or is it that each night only the head of the household lights and he adds another ner? That's going to be a machlokes the Mechaber and the Ramah. But first, let's go weiter in the Bir Halacha. V'atam, the reason why there's a Mahadrin Mina Mahadrin that says that you should add a ner each night is Keneged Yabim Hayotzim, because you light for each night of Chanukah that has already passed. V'zeh hayoyim she'omed boi, the day that you're on, Nimne im hayomim sheyotzu kvar, is counted with the days that have already passed. So on day 1, you light 1. On day 2, you light 2. And that's considered the days that have already passed. There's day 1 that's already taka passed, and day 2, that's the day you're on now, that's counted with the days that have passed. V'hainu, continues the Chafetz Chaim, shebazeh yedu, by doing this we know, v'yizkeru hakoil, and everybody will remember, kama yomim yotza bahasmodas hanes. What this does is it commemorates and it reminds everybody the lengthy continuity of the nes. On day 5, for example, we're celebrating that for 5 consecutive days we had nisim. For 5 consecutive days we had this oil that kept on burning. Remember, we only had a pack of shemen that was enough for one day. It burned one day, then it burned a second day, then it burnt the third day, then it burnt the fourth day. So each day we're commemorating the lengthy continuity of the nes. Kama yomim yotza ba'asmodas hanes. Ukesheyazkiru zeh shayahanes meshech zman rav. By mentioning that the nes continued for a long while, yesh by persume nisa, that creates a tremendous publicizing of the great nes, v'shevach yoser laHashem Yisbarach, and greater praise to Hashem Yisbarach. V'oid, and another reason why we would add another ner every day is shemalin b'kodesh, because when it comes to mili shebekdusha, we always want to add on, we always want to be moisif, we always want to grow. Okay, with that akdama, let's go to Sif Beis in the Mechaber. Says the Mechaber, Kama neiros madlik, how many neiros should you light? Balayla harishain madlik echad, on the first night you light one ner. Mikan ve'elich, and then going forward, Moisif v'hoilich echad b'chal layla, you add an additional ner each night, ad shebalel achrein, until it comes out that on the last night of Chanukah, Yiyu Shmoina, you'll have 8 lichtalach. Va'afilu im rabim b'nei abayis, and even if there are many people living in the household, says the Mechaber, loy yadliku yoser, you should not light more. So what we see from the Mechaber over here is, the Mechaber has chosen what the Gemara in Shabbos said is the Mahadrin min Mahadrin, that we light one licht on the first night, and then each night we add on another licht. So 1 on the first night, 2 on the second night, 3 on the third night. However, the Mechaber says that this is only done by the head of the household. It's only done 1 menorah for each household, not that each member of the household does it. Says the Mishnah Berurah back on Kuflam Chesam and Aleph in Mishnah Berurah is cut and Dalet. Mikan ve'elich, according to the mitzvah of Mahadrin min Mahadrin, each day you're adding another lichtala. Says the Chafetz Chaim, V'im ein yadai maseges, rak l'ner echad b'chal layla loy ulevesai. But if you only have enough funds for 1 ner each night for the household, yotza bazeh midina. Chafetz Chaim reminds us, me'ikar adin, you only need ner ishu beisai. V'shiyura de Shulchan Aruch, this that the description that the Mechaber is giving here, rak l'misha yadai maseges li yais mahadrim and a mahadrin. This only applies to somebody who has the funds to be able to be mekayim the mitzvah mahadrim and a mahadrin. But this is not me'ikar adin. Ois katan hey echad b'chal layla. The mitzvah of mahadrim and a mahadrin, we add another ner each night. Now, says the Chafetz Chaim, interesting case. V'im yesh loy tisha neros. Let's say you have 9 candles. So you have 8 candles for the 8 nights of Hanukkah, and you have 1 extra ner. What should you do? You don't have enough to add another ner for each night of Hanukkah, so should you just do the Ikar Adin and just light 1 ner each night, or should you take that 9th candle and make use of it somehow in the Hidra Mitzvah? Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'im yesh loy tisha neros, if you have 9 lichtalach, yadlik balel sheni shtei neros. So on the second night, add a ner. On the second night, add 2. Now, you're not going to be able to add any neiros on the third night because now you don't have any extra candles. You only have 9. So on the first night, you used 1. On the second night, you used 2. So you only got 6 left. You need those 6 for the next 6 days of Hanukkah to have 1 for each night. But at least on the second night of Hanukkah, you are Mekayim Mahadrin min Mahadrin. So v'im yesh lo tisha neiros yadlik balel sheni shtei neiros. V'im yesh lo eser neiros. Now, what do you do if you have 10 candles? So now you have another candle. Is there a way to use that candle? So the Chavetz Chaim is saying, you might have thought that maybe if you have 10 candles, so, okay, maybe on the third night, you should light 2, because you have an extra candle, you could light more than 1. Should you light 2? Says the Mishnah Berurah, no, absolutely not. Only light on the second night 2, right? Don't light 2 on the third night. There's no makom to light 2 on the third night. According to the Ikra Din, you only light 1. According to Mahadri ben Ahadri, you need 3. But you don't have enough candles to light 3 on the third night. So you only light 1. Rakachas. Ois Cotton Vav, Ad Shabalel Achrain, if you follow the math of the Mahadrim and the Mahadrin, so on the 8th night, you have 8 Lichtalach. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Umi she'ein lo shemen harbe. Let's say somebody has more oil than he needs to light 1 each night, but he doesn't have enough oil that he should be able to add another 1 each night and have all of the lichtalach burning for the sheer hadlaka, right? We're going to see that if the neiros have to light, they have to remain lit for a minimal amount of time, right? So he doesn't have enough oil that every night he's going to light that number of neiros and have enough fuel that they should all burn for long enough. Is there still some aspect of Mahadrim and a Mahadrin that he could be Makayim? Says the Mishnah Berurah, yes. If he doesn't have a lot of oil, Yitain be'echad shemen kishir. Each night, he should make sure that he fills up 1 nair with enough oil that it will burn for the sheer hadlaka. So he's Bekayim the Chiyuv of the Ikar Adin of Chiyuv Neres Chanukah, because every night he has at least 1 nair that burns long enough. Kashir, v'hamoiser, and then the extra oil, yechalek lekulam, divided up evenly amongst the other neiros. So on the first night, he'll have 1 lamp that burns for the shear. On the second night, he'll have 1 lamp that burns for the shear, and a second lamp that will burn, but not for the shear. On the third night, again, he'll have 1 that burns for the shear, and he'll have 2 that will burn for a while, but not for the shear. Shem yasa lekula b'shaveh. He has to do this because if instead he would divide up the oil evenly, then he wouldn't even have 1 that's burning for long enough. Then he's not mekayim the chiyuv even maker adin. Now another case. Let's say a person has, he bought one of those sets in Eichler's, those pre-filled glasses. So he has exactly what he needs for the 8 nights of Chanukah to be mekayim the chiyuv of Neres Chanukah, Mahadrin min Mahadrin. Now, let's assume for a moment that those pre-filled glasses, they burn exactly for the shear. So this guy bought one of those sets. He's got enough oil, b'tzimtzum, that he is prepared to be mekayim, Mahadrin min Mahadrin on Neres Chanukah. So he's sitting pretty. But v'lechavera ein lo klum. But his neighbor has no shemen. His neighbor has no way to be mekayim the chiyuv of Neres Chanukah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, mutav sheyadlik b'chalayla echad. It would be better that he should burn 1 nair each night and be mekayim the chiyuv of Neres Chanukah only me'ikar adin, not mahadrin and mahadrin. V'yiten gam lechaveroi. But give oil to your neighbor so that your neighbor could also be mekayim the ikar chiyuv of Neres Chanukah. The Hamidina Yitzarech al Echad Canal, because we saw that in Ikar Adin you only have to light 1 nair each night. So says the Chavetz Chaim, if your chaver doesn't have shemen for Neres Chanukah, give him neiros to be mekayim the Ikar Adin of Neres Chanukah, and you'll also only be mekayim the chiyuv mi Ikar Adin. Don't you go to be mekayim the mitzvah Mahadrin and Mahadrin and leave your chaver high and dry that he won't be able to be mekayim the chiyuv at all. However, there's a caveat, says the Mishnah Berurah. V'dafka kishachaverei einay mibnei beisai oisha einay samach al shulchanai. This is only if we're talking about a neighbor who's in his own household. We're not talking about a member of your own household. Avalim hu mibnei beisai. But if this person who doesn't have oil is a member of your own household, so you, let's say you're the father, you're the husband, you're the head of the household. You have enough oil to be Mekai Mahadrin and a Mahadrin, and you have a son, you have a 15-year-old son who you don't have oil for him. He doesn't have anything. In that case, says the Mishnah Berurah, Mutav Shiyehu Meha Mahadrin, it's better that you should be Mekai the mitzvah Mahadrin min a Mahadrin, and don't give the 15-year-old anything. Why? Very simple. Because Me'ikar Adin, he's Mekayim his chiv by your lighting. Remember, the Ikar Adin is Ner Ishu Besan. So Me'ikar Adin, by you lighting, you're Mitzi all the people in your household. It's better that you should be Mekayim the mitzvah Mahadrin min a Mahadrin and be Mitzi the other people in the household with your lighting than to downgrade the mitzvah and everybody is only going to do Mahadrin and all the members of the household are going to light. Eis Katan Zayin, you Shmaina, on the final day of Chanukah, you'll have 8 Lichtelach, says the Chavetz Chaim, V'im Hashemen hu b'yoiker, if oil is very expensive, Mutav lahadlik b'nei shava, it would be better to light with wax candles, V'li yois meisif v'hoilich k'may shekasav b'fnim, but to do the Mahadrin min a Mahadrin and light, add on another candle for every day. Mima sheyadlik b'shemen zayis ner echad b'kol layla levad. So again, if oil is very, very expensive, and the choice that you have is either you're going to use oil and then you're only going to be able to do the Ikar Adin, you're only going to be able to light one licht each night, or you could use candles. And if you use candles, you'll be able to do the Mahadrim and a Mahadrin. Then you should do the Mahadrim and a Mahadrin, and you should use candles. Now, we're going to see going further. The reason for this is, you have to realize that the inyan of using Shem and Zayis is not so much because the nace occurred with Shem and Zayis. It's because the Shem and Zayis has a beautiful flame. So in that case, the whole discussion over here is two different hidurim. There's one hidur which is brought down in the Gemara, which is Mahadrim and a Mahadrin to be Meisef HaHolich, to add a licht for every night. There's another hidur to use Shem and Zayis that it makes a beautiful flame. Says the Chavetz Chaim, given that choice, use candles and be Meisef HaHolich. Okay. Let's go weiter. Now we're on Kuf Lamed Ches Amid Beis, Mishnah Berurah Eis Katan Ches. So we have over here, the Mechaber said that the Mechaber's description of Mahadrin min a Mahadrin is that you're going to be Meisef v'hoilich, you're going to add another licht for every night, but that's only going to be done by the head of the household. It's not going to be done by each member of the household. Eis Katan Ches, Lo Yadliku Yoser. The Mechaber said, Afilu im rabim b'nei abayis. Even if there are a lot of people living in the house, Lo Yadliku Yoser. You don't light more than, if it's the third night, 3 licht. That's it. So it's only the head of the household. Lo Yadliku Yoser, says the Mishnah Berurah, Bein balayla rishayna ubein b'sha'arei leilos, whether it's the first night or it's other nights. Da'akol nigrarim eitzel balabayis. Everybody goes after the head of the household. Afilu banav hagedolim, even his adult children, umisharsav, or his workers or servants. Kevin Chaim smuchim al shulchanai, since they're all dependent on his table, since they all have their parnasa from him. Bikvius heim bechlal b'nei beisai, they're considered b'nei beisai, and they're all yotzei according to the Mechaber with his lighting. Okay, now we go to the, you know what? Before we go to the Ramah, let's take a look at the Biur Halacha Dibra Mascha Lo Yadliku Yoser, where the Chavetz Chaim in this Biur Halacha explains the position of the Mechaber. Says the Chavetz Chaim here, Ayin Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotneches V'Hatam. The reasoning of the Mechaber is that only the head of the household lights another licht every night, because if you use this method, Kisharoyan Babayis Balel Sheni, Shedolkid Shtei Nerois, now on night number 2, every window that you look at in all the houses, you're going to see 2 neros. Yargishu b'toisas haner. Now it's very obvious that a ner was added for the second night. Avaladei ashniya, but according to the Ramah that we're about to see, shamadlikin b'layla harishayna ner l'chalechad b'bnei abayis, according to the Ramah, that everybody lights and everybody adds another licht every night. So what's going to happen if there's a household that has 6 people in it? On the first night, there's going to be 6 neros. So Oz in Yadliku B'Layla Shtiya Shtayim L'Chal. So now on the next night there's going to be 12. Ain't kan hakara l'toisas haner. You don't see that clear increase of 1, 2, 3. All you see is a huge jumble of neros. If you see 6 licht, maybe it's because there's 6 people living in the house. But it's not because it's the 6th night of Hanukkah. Of course, this problem is only true, it's only a factor if everybody is lighting next to each other, which the Ramah is clearly going to say you shouldn't do. The Ramah is going to say that everybody should light in a distinct place. Trying to lubricate the throat. Okay, so now let's go back into the Shulchan Aruch top line and let's see the words of the Ramah. Hago, there are those that say the Chalechad B'Bnei Abayis Yadlik, that each member of the household should light and they should all be Moisef Ha'olich each night of Chanukah, V'chein HaMinig Pashut, and the Ramah says that that is the accepted minig. But says the Ramah, V'yizaharu, you should take care. Everybody should put their neris in a separate place. Don't light in a big mumble jumble, because then nobody could tell which night of Chanukah it is. Everybody should light in their own place. That way it's recognizable which night of Chanukah it is. It says the Mishnah Berurah's cotton test. The Chavetz Chaim says, when we say that kol echad ve'echad should light, not the woman of the house, not the wife, because ishtoi kigufai, and by the husband lighting the neres Chanukah, he is clearly moitzi his wife. The same way, the truth is, a husband could light the neres Shabbos. If there's a need for the husband to light the neres Shabbos, the husband could light the neres Shabbos, and he's moitzi the wife in lighting the neres Shabbos. Ois kan yud yadlik. Everyone should take care to light in a different place. The Yosef Aholich ner echad b'chalayla, because you're going to add another licht each night. If there isn't enough money in the household for every member of the household to be Yosef Aholich, yadliku ner echad b'chalayla. So then maybe the balabayas will be Yosef Aholich, and the other members of the household will each light one. There is an interesting question amongst the Poskim, what the halacha is of single girls. Should single girls light? My daughters do light. When they get married, they won't light. Their husband will light for them. But when they're single, they do light. There are other Poskim that say that the minhag always was that girls did not light. One of the reasons given for it is because, as we're going to see, when in Eretz Yisrael, where does everybody light? They light outside by the door. That was the Iker Takanas Chazal, to light outside Eitz ala Pesach, and they say kol kfuda bas melech pnima. It's not within the guidelines of tznius that all the girls should go outside at night and go light outside by the door, and that's a reason why Poskim say girls don't light. Now we come to a couple of seifim over here that are a little bit complex. I didn't bring my Aruch HaShulchan up here with me, but I'll follow the lead of the Aruch HaShulchan in trying to explain what I think the Mechaber means. So let's see here, Sif Gimel. Ner sheyesh lo shtei piyos. A ner is a lamp. A ner is not a candle. A ner is not a flame. When we use the word ner, we're referring to the lamp. So the Mechaber says, ner sheyesh lo shtei piyos. A ner that has two openings. Now, in your mind, when you hear about a lamp that has two openings, I think right away what you picture is a closed keli that has two openings for wicks. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a ner that was meant to be open. So imagine like an elongated dish that you pour oil into, and on each side there's a little tapered opening on the rim of the keli that a wick lays in. That's what we mean by a ner sheyesh lo shtei piyos. It's a lamp that was obviously constructed to have two burning wicks. It's got those two tapered kind of channels that the wick lays in. So, says the Mechaber, this ner sheyesh lo shtei piyos, such a lamp that has two openings, oiloloi b'shvil shnayim, it can be used for two. Now, the Mechaber does not write exactly what that means, that it could be used for two. To what? Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Katan Yud Aleph. Shtei piyos. Hainu shehapsilois mibifnim munachim baner ze eitzel ze. This is one keli full of oil. You're laying two wicks, one on one side, one on the other side. But in the keli, submerged in the oil, there are two wicks, one right next to the other. Rak roshei apsilois, but the tips of the wicks, kishebolten lachutz, when they extend outward outside of the oil, nechlokin lishtei mekaymas, they lay in two distinct places. V'kamash balad, and the Mechaber is teaching us, even though within the keli submerged in the oil, the two wicks are right next to each other. Nevertheless, since, see, that's the thing. That's why I talk about these two tapered openings. Since the ner has two openings for wicks, so it's not just a bowl that you laid in two wicks. No, it is a lamp that is constructed to have two openings for wicks. So even though the two wicks are right next to each other inside, but, says the Mishnah Berurah, since where they are put into the openings for the wicks, minkar shein shtayim, it's obvious that it's two lamps, it's two flames. Nechshavos kishtayim, it is considered to be two. Ice cotton yud beis, oiloloi b'shvel shnayim. It works for two. What does that mean? Says the Mishnah Berurah. Mashma bilashon zeh. The Chavetz Chaim says that it is implied, and he brings this down from the Prima Gadim. It's implied by the lashon of the Mechaber. Da'afilu l'mahadrin ha'oisin ner l'chal echad. Even according, remember, me'ikar adin ner ishu beisai. Mahadrin, each person lights his own ner. Says the Chavetz Chaim, when the Mechaber says oiloloi b'shvil shnayim, that these two flames, these two wicks, could be counted for two, mashma miloshen zeh, the implication of this terminology is da'afilu l'mahadrin, even according to the level of mahadrin, ha'osin ner l'chal echad, where each member of the household lights a ner, gam ken yoyel zeh l'shnei b'nei adam. These two wicks would work for two individual people, even though it's in one bowl of oil. Why not? Oilaloi b'shvil shnayim. It counts for two. He doesn't say oilaloi b'shvil shnei yamim. He says oilaloi b'shvil shnayim. So it could work even for two different people. V'ayim b'Magen Avram shadaitai. He says, take a look at the Magen Avram in Magen Avram Ois Katan Beis. D'lefi mai de'isa le'el. Based on what we saw earlier in Sif Beis Bahagah in the Ramah. The Ramah said that according to our minig, where each member of the household adds another ner each night, everybody has to be careful to put their neris in one place. Right? What did the Ramah say? The Ramah said our minig is there's 5 people in the house. On night number 3, each one of the 5 people are going to light 3 neris, so you have 15 neris. Said the Ramah, each person should be careful to light in his own place. Why? Because if they light in one big mumbo jumbo, do we know which night of Chanukah it is? We don't know which night of Chanukah it is. We don't know how many people there are in the house. We just see a whole pile of neris. But if each one of them lights in a distinct place, so you have 5 distinct groupings of 3 neris each, then we know that there are 5 household members, each lighting 3 because it's the 3rd night of Chanukah. That's what the Ramah said. Says the Magen Avram. Based on that, lo yadliku shnei anoshim b'ner echad, 2 people should never light in one ner. This case of the Mechaberes, when the Mechaber says ner sheyesh lo shtei piyos, a lamp that has 2 openings could count for 2 people, the Magen Avram says 2 people should never light in one ner. Even on the first night, when everybody knows it's the first night of Chanukah, if they see a lamp with 2 neris, they'll realize it's 2 separate people. Still, you should be careful. Everybody should light in their own place. The Efsher, but the Chofetz Chaim says for Efsher, however, it is possible. The Efsher that dafka ner sheyesh loy rak shnei piyos. Could be, says the Chofetz Chaim, that this hakpad of the Magen Avram is only in this case where you have a ner that has only 2 openings. But our Chanukah menorahs that have 8 distinct lamps, mutter lahadlik shnei b'nei adam zeh b'kotze zeh v'zeh b'kotze zeh. Let's say it's the 2nd night of Chanukah. You have a menorah that has 8 lamps. One person could light 2 on this side, and one person could light 2 on that side. Why? Because everybody will understand that it's 2 different people that are lighting. Because if it was one person, they would light all the nearest next to each other. So if there's 2 here and 2 here, for a total of 4, why are there 4 empty ones in the middle? Obviously, it's not the 4th night. Obviously, it's one person lighting 2 here and one person lighting 2 here. Otherwise, they would have lit in a row. Okay, now we go to Siv Daled. So before we go to Siv Daled, I just want to be very clear again so that you should understand the contrast between Siv Gimel and Siv Daled. Siv Gimel was discussing a case where we had a ner, we had some kind of a lamp that has 2 distinct openings for wicks. And the Mechaber said that could count for 2 individual neris. And the Mishnah Berurah said it could count for 2 people, it could count for the 2nd night, according to Mahadrim and the Mahadrim. That was Siv Gimel. Now let's go to Siv Daled. Mile ka'ora shemen. You took a bowl. It's not a ner. It doesn't have openings for wicks. It doesn't have little taperings on or channels on the rim of the bowl that you lay a wick in. This is not a ner. This is a breakfast cereal bowl. It's a soup bowl. And you filled it up with oil and you stuck in wicks. You just haphazardly stuck in wicks going around the rim. Says the Mechaber, Mile ka'ara shemen, you filled up a bowl with oil, v'kif up silos, and you made wicks going around. Says the Mechaber, it depends. Im kafa aleha keli, if you made a cover for the bowl. So now there's a cover, and it has holes in it where the wicks come out. So now the areas of the wicks are very distinct one from the other. Now you made it like a nair that has openings, distinct openings for wicks. You made a cover with holes, and each wick comes up out of a separate hole, and it is distinct from the one that's next to it. Then kol psila oila b'shvil ner echad. Then each wick counts for a separate nair. Like kafa ala akeli, but if you did not make a cover, then afilu l'ner echad eina oila. Then it doesn't even count as one lefishu k'medura, because now all it is a torch. If you have a bowl with a lot of burning wicks in a circle, that's a torch. That's not a candelabra with individual neiros. It's a torch, and you can't make Chanukah neiros out of a torch. The nace of the neiros Chanukah was with neiros, not with torches. So we can't be yaitz in a mitzvah with a medura, with a torch. Says the Mishnah Berurah, is cutting Yud Gimel im kafa. If you made a cover, sha'al yedei zeh ein mischabrim kol hapsilos yachad, because now each wick will stay in its designated place, and the psilos will not move and combine one with the other, and the flames will not go ahead and join, because everything is kept separate. However, says the Mishnah Berurah, v'davka kishakafa v'achakach hidlik. This is only okay if you put on the cover and then lit the neiros. Avalim hidlik, but if you lit v'achakach kafa and then covered the neiros, that's no good. Tzarich lechabois, you have to put out the neiros, or lekases bekli, and to cover it with a keli, v'lachzar or lahadlik, and to light it over again, because when you lit bipsul. You didn't light it bekashrus, you lit it bipsul. Now, there is, I believe, a Dirshu footnote. Footnote 34 goes into a discussion of whether or not you have to make a bracha over again. It's a long footnote. I know Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says that in such a case you would have to make a new bracha, but there is discussion about this in footnote number 34. Ice cotton yodalid lefishu kimedura. This is problematic because now it's a torch. Shemischabreis kalalahav yachad, because it would be the nature of the flames to join up into one flame. Says the Ramah, 4 lines from the bottom, last word on the line, Hagah, Velochein. And based on this same reasoning, Yesh li Zahir, we should take care, Lahamid haneros b'shura b'shaveh v'loi b'igel. The Ramah says that because of this same concern, that we don't want to create a torch, you should never make the Neiros Chanukah in a circle. We should make the Neiros Chanukah in a straight row. Because when you make them in a circle so that Neiros are opposite each other, then the flames have a tendency to join together and to form a torch. Instead, they should be aligned with this, a definitive space. We're going to see either an etzpa, some say an etzpa, some say shtei etzpos, between each flame, and they should be apart. They should go in a line, not in a circle. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, is cotton tesvav, b'shura b'shaveh, they should be in a line, in a straight line. The words of the Ramah is b'shura, in a row, b'shaveh, in a line. They should be aligned one with the other. Hainu, shalasos echad nichnas v'echad yoytzei, gam kein eina kedai. We should not do it staggered. We should not have in, out, in, out, in, out. It should be in a row, and it should be in a straight row. And the Mishnah Berurah says the reason for this is shalayavai lasos beigel. Once we're going to start doing designs and zigzags and this and that, someone is going to do it in a circle, and we shouldn't do it in a circle. To have it kimedura is cut tezayin. V'em yesh hefsek mechitza bein ner lener. If there's actually a mechitza between each ner, ukeroichav etzpa beinehen, and there's a space of at least a thumb's breadth between them, mutter va'afilu loy kafal le'akli, then it's okay even if you don't put on a keli, v'chein noyagin. The dafka b'ka'ara she'ein sham hefsek beiner l'ner. The problem is only a bowl where it's all open. There's no mechitzis between the neiros, and that's when you have a problem. Says the Ramah weiter, 2 lines from the bottom. This is a very interesting Ramah. Mutler lahadlik bepamoitoi shekarin lampa. You're allowed to light using what I believe is like a candelabra. Candelabra has multiple branches, but they may be in a circle. But it's individual branches. So mutter lahadlik bepamoitos shekarin lampa. Be'achar shekol ner muvdal harbe mechaveroi, because each ner is very separate from the one next to it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, in those days they were made out of copper. Ha'asuyim konim konim, they're made of individual branches, yoitzin svivos, that come out of the main trunk, be'eagle, in a circle. That the Ramah says you could do. Sha'akonim chalulin, in those cases the branches are hollow. U'mechitzas kol konem mafsik beinoy lebein chaveroi. There's very distinct mechitzos. The lamps themselves form mechitzos between each one. They're individual lamps. Mayachar shekol ner muvdal harbe mashbe b'loshen zed the tarti be'inan. From the phraseology of the Ramah, it sounds like there are 2 requirements. The branches have to be clearly separate, one from the other. Besides the fact that they all have their own separate walls. If you stick candles on the wall, they should be separated at least by an etzbah. Let's just go a little bit further. Says the Ramah on the bottom line, V'yizarun, you should take care, kisha'osim neiros afilu b'shava, if you make candles, wax candles, she'ein l'dabkam yachad u'ladlikan. Don't stick the candles to each other, even though they have individual wicks. David Kimedura, that already gives it the status of a torch. He says even for Neres Shabbos and Neres Yom Tov, you also should be careful not to do this. Don't join the candles to each other. Ice cutting your test on the bottom of Kuf Lamed Chesed and Beis. Shein l'davkam b'yachad u'ladlikan. Afilu lahadbik shtayim b'yachad oser. Even to just join 2 together is problematic. V'chol shekein arba oy chamisha devadei ner kimedura. Certainly on day 4 or day 5, don't stick them together, because that definitely would have the status of a torch. Ice cutting chaf. Afilu b'neres Shabbos v'Yom Tov. Ayin b'bir halacha. Okay, thank you so much for joining me for Liman HaTorah. Schus of Liman HaTorah should be making a ganz klal Yisrael, the Ron Shem Shesen, Yeshua's Refuah's Parnas, and Shidduchim to all those in need, and we should be zeicher to see the BS Gal Tzedek, B'meher v'yameinu, Amen. Be well.